Okay. Hare Krishna, a very warm welcome to the devotees to our class on Srimad Bhagavatam study. Today we will continue our discussion on the fourth chapter of Canto 1, and our discussion will start from 14th verse till 33rd verse. So there are total 33 verses in chapter. We will finish fourth chapter in today's session. The title of this chapter is Appearance of Sri Narad Muni. This is overall our 13th class. The previous classes are available on YouTube on the channel Gita Online Study. You can go there and refer to our previous classes in case you have missed those. Thank you. We will start with Mangalacharan prayers. So I think Jivan Radha Prabhu will be
Yeah.
reciting the Mangalacharan prayers. Prabhuji, yes.
Can I start, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Twayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yutapada Kamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sah Gana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Tadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sah Gana Lalita Sri Vyashakatanvitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे.
Thank you very much, Jivan Prabhuji. Very nicely recited.
I will continue that.
Yes,
Om
Prabhuji.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Nattaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you very much. Now I would like to invite Manish Prabhu from Singapore. Prabhuji, can you help us recap the previous class?
Yes. Hare Krishna to all devotees, and let me recap the summary of the last class. We are now studying Canto 1, Chapter 4, which is under the title of Appearance of Sri Narada. So here we will talk about verse 1 to 13, which the section elaborates on Shaunaka Rishi glorifying the Sutta Goswami. So again, going back, the sages are gathered in Naimisharanya to listen the Srimad Bhagavatam from Sutta Goswami. I think it is like we all gather every Sunday here to also listen Srimad Bhagavatam from our respected Guru Keshav Gopalji. Yes, going to further point number 1, Prabhuji. So here we see that the leader, Shaunak Rishi, gets up, or he's a very elderly or learned leader. He rises up in the assembly and he wants to praise Sutta Goswami. So Prabhupada ji here describes the quality of the leader of the assembly. Shaunak Rishi is a quite elderly, learned leader, yeah, and he congratulates Sutta Goswami. He has a lot of confidence in the previous acharyas, and then we also understand the formula here listed as please, which talks about practical application, lesson learned, examples, analogies, shastra stories, and elaboration. The quality is what a leader should possess is defined in this formula, please. Yeah. Verse number 2, Shaunak Rishi praises Suta Goswami. So among the speaker of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Suta Goswami is very fortunate and very respected, and who can speak and recite Srimad Bhagavatam. So everybody knows that, and therefore Shaunaka Rishi praises Suta Goswami with respect and asking him, please narrate the Srimad Bhagavatam, the stories of Srimad Bhagavatam spoken by Shukdev Goswami. So we are eagerly waiting to hear this from you. So typically what we understand here, the Shaunak Rishi raises the questions in three categories. So here, verse number 3, why? How is the history of Bhagavatam? Verses 4 to 8, speaker of Bhagavatam, we want to understand more about Shukdev Goswami. And verse 9 to 13, we want to hear about Parikshit Maharaj, who was the hearer of Bhagavatam. So verse number 3 talks about the history of Bhagavatam. Just wanted to understand in which yuga, at which place, for what reason, and by whose inspiration did Vyasadeva compile this Srimad Bhagavatam. We want to understand on more. So this was the question number 1, which was raised by Shaunak Rishi. Then we go to verse number 4, which talks about what were the qualities of Shukdev Goswami. So here we understand that Vyasadeva's son, Shukdev Goswami, was a great devotee, an equibalanced monist. Yeah, he was a Brahmavadi, yeah, who was attracted towards the impersonal aspect of the absolute truth and was a liberated soul. He had, no material contaminant, completely free from lack pie. Yeah, he was transcendental to mundane activities and also was being unexposed. So typically he appeared like a ignorant person. Yeah. Then in the verse number 5, we also talked about the purified version of Shukdev Goswami. The example given here was damsels bathing naked in the pond did not cover their bodies when Shukdev Goswami just passed away. So Shukdev Goswami had such a purified vision that he made no differentiation between a male or a female, and he was looking at a living entity as a Samadarshina. Yeah? So this was what a purified version of Shukdev Goswami was. Verse number 6 covers again the question about Shukdev Goswami. When he left his home and moved towards Hastinapur, he was naked. He appeared to be a dumb or unlearned person to the people or to the citizens of Hastinapur. So how did the citizens of Hastinapur react on this? When they saw Shukdev Goswami in all this kind of appearance, how did they react and how did they behave with Shukdev Goswami? So verse number 7 talks. So here the line which Prabhupada has mentioned, that a typical sadhu is recognized by his hearing and not by his sight. This is what a very clear statement Prabhupada ji has given here. And then verse number 7 talks about question about Shukdev Goswami. How did it so happen that King Parikshit met him? Yeah, met this great sage, making it possible for the great transcendental essence of the Vedas to be sung to him. How did Parikshit Maharaj came in contact with this sage and he heard the Srimad Bhagavatam from him. Verse number 8 talks about the Shukdev Goswami's exemplary behavior. So Shukdev Goswami was a real sannyasi. Yeah, he used to stop at the door of householder long enough for a cow to be milked, just to sanctify the residence. So typically a sannyasi or a people who are in renounced order of life have no business with the householders except to enlighten them in the transcendental knowledge. So this was one of the great behavior of Shukdev Goswami. Then verse number 9, we talk about the hearer of Bhagavatam, that is Parikshit Maharaj. So Parikshit Maharaj was blessed because his birth was wonderful, his activities were wonderful, and also his death was also wonderful. Birth, because when he was in the womb of his mother, he was protected by the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. His activities are wonderful because he chased Kali, who was attempting to kill a cow. And his death, when he came to, we understood that he is going to die within 5 days or 7 days, he knew that, and he prepared himself for passing away, or he prepared himself for learning Srimad Bhagavatam and doing all the transcendental activities of the Lord. Question 10 to 11, it talks about again Parikshit Maharaj. Yeah, the Parikshit Maharaj was a great emperor. He bowed down in front of enemies. Yeah, he gave up everything and fasted unto death. Yeah, so even he was a king. He 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 gave everything to sit on the bank of Ganges and fast until death. So he was such a great king. Yeah, he was full of opulence, and then yeah, and still he gave his still he gave everything and went to Ganges and fast until death. So verse number 12 talks about devotees lives for welfare of others. So question of Parikshit is dedicated to welfare of others, and then why left his subjects. Yeah. So here it talks about that. Prabhupada ji talks about the ideal king. How should a king to be? The king is not only concerned of human capital but also the animal capital. So he has to provide complete protection to his kingdom. The king is representative of the Supreme Lord, and therefore the king's interest must be identical with what that of a Supreme Lord. So these were the qualities of Parikshit Maharaj, or an ideal king. Then we come to verse number 13, sages' confidence in Sutta Goswami. So the sages who all are there in the Namish are very confident that Sutta Goswami is expert in all the subjects and will clearly explain the answer except some portion of the Vedas. So here Prabhupada ji explains the difference between Brahmanas and Parivrajakas. Yeah? The Brahmanas are meant to do the Vedas or the sacrifice, and they are good in chanting the mantras. However, the Parivrajakacharyas, they are the learned preachers, and they are meant to disseminate transcendental knowledge to one and all. So they are not very expert in chanting mantra, but they are completely what you can say the learned preachers who only know about the transcendental knowledge, yeah, and disseminating the transcendental knowledge. So the last line which Prabhupada ji clearly mentioned is that realization is more important than parrot-like chanting. Yeah. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, and thank you, devotees. Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Manish ji, thank you very much. It was a very nice summary, very nicely captured every point, briefly mentioned, touched upon almost everything, and did it in a very nice manner. Thank you very much. So, other devotees also who are joining this class and would like to take up to this service of recapping the class and presenting it, writing the summary before sending it before the class to me and presenting it in the class. The service is available. So in case you are interested, please let me know. Okay, we'll move to the fresh class today. As we just now have seen that 13 verses, the first 13 verses is all about questions. Second set of questions. First set was 6 questions. The second set actually contains questions on 3 topics: Bhagavatam, Shukdev Goswami, and Parikshit Maharaj. And that we have covered today in the previous class. We just now recapped it. Now we are going to start from the 14th verse, and we will continue and end the class today by completing the session today by the 33rd verse, reciting the 33rd verse. So the themes are, now after Shaunak Rishi has raised further questions, Sud Goswami starts to answer, and first of all he tells about the history of Bhagavatam. And mentions that Vyasdev actually divides the Vedas into 4 parts. Then there is a discussion around that Vyasdev becomes dissatisfied and goes into contemplation. He starts thinking about the reason for his dissatisfactions. And then while he is contemplating, Vyasdev is contemplating, his Gurudev, his spiritual master, Narad Muni, actually arrives in the ashram, and then the discussion starts, and that discussion will be the subject matter of the 5th chapter. But by the end of the 4th chapter, Narad Muni just arrives and Vyasdev actually welcomes him. So let us begin the class today. So I've just kept this table from the previous class just to give you an idea about that. In this theme, in the next set of questions is about 3 topics. One is about Srimad Bhagavatam, Parikshit Maharaj, and Shukdev Goswami. So the question about Srimad Bhagavatam, the history of Srimad Bhagavatam, actually will now be started to answered. So the 14th verse, which we are going to study now, the answer starts to begin from that verse and will continue till the 7th chapter, 11th verse. When, where, how, and on whose inspiration did Vyasadev compiled Srimad Bhagavatam? So that is the first set of questions which will be answered till 11th verse of the 7th chapter. And about Parikshit Maharaj, the answer will start from the 12th verse onwards. Now you can see how Bhagavatam is so structured that it actually takes on these questions and answers one by one. Similarly, about Shukdev Goswami, we are going to study in the 18th and the 19th chapter. So that's how it will go on. Okay, today, can you please remind me? I think we are going to involve the devotees for recitation. Last time it was Anuradha Mataji, Jivan Prabhu, Rakesh ji, and Vrindavaneshwari Mataji, right? Is that correct?
Correct,
Yes,
Prabhu.
Prabhu.
Okay, so today we will have 5 devotees, starting with Anita Mataji, then Manish ji, Mangala Mataji. This Mangala Mataji is our Mangala. There are 2 Mangala Matajis. Now I need to see which Mangala Mataji is here. I think
Prabhuji, it is Mangla Mahalakshmi Mataji. Prabhuji, little I am today in hearing mode. I came to my
Okay.
native.
Okay, no
Next
problem.
week I will take up, Prabhu, if you want.
No, yeah, okay. So the Mangala Mataji I am actually referring is the one whom I am connected with through Jayanti Mataji. So this is she is a different Mangala ji. Anyway, but today I think then it will be Anita ji, Manish Prabhu, Vasudevan Prabhu, and Vidya Mataji. So the 4 devotees will be doing the recitation. Okay, so we will start with Anita ji. Mataji, today we will not have verses, Sanskrit verses on every theme, on every page, because I want to increase the speed a little bit. So now the storyline has started. So we will skip some of the verses which are not of much philosophical value, but the storyline is there. So we will read the translation. So please, can you help me read the translation of this verse?
Sure, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
14 to 25, Vyasadeva divides the Vedas. 14, birth of Vyasadeva. Sutta Goswami said, when the second millennium overlapped the third, the great sage Vyasadeva was born to Parashara in the womb of Satyavati, the daughter of Vasu, the fisherman. In the region of Vaishvat Manu, 28th Yuga cycle.
Yeah, Mataji, just I think I will. These are the bullet points for me to explain. So I would request only for the translation you read it. So let me pick it up from here. Thank you very much. Okay. So now there are two information primarily in this, and if you remember, just now we saw when, where, how, and on whose inspiration. So here we are talking about when and where. Where means the parents actually. When and where. The birth of Vyasadev is being mentioned here, and it is being said when the second millennium means yuga, overlapped the third. So we know there are 4 yugas. Which are the 4 yugas? Can anyone mention to me?
Treta Yuga,
Dwapar Yuga and Kali Yuga.
Yes, Prabhu. Satya, Treta, Dwapar, and Kali Yuga. So what would be the second millennium? Second yuga would be Treta.
Treta Yuga.
And the third millennium would be Dwapar
Dwapar
Yuga.
Yuga.
So it is being said, when the second millennium overlapped the third, the great sage was born to Parashar in the womb of Satyavati, who was the daughter of a Vasu, and Vasu actually means here fisherman. So Satyavati was a daughter of a fisherman, and she married Parashar Muni, and great sage Vyasadev was born. So the parent's name is given here, and then another small detail is given. A second millennium overlapped the third millennium. Now, in order to understand this small technical detail, what does it mean by overlapping of the second millennium with the third? I have taken this help of these 4 bullet points, which I would explain you. In the regime of Vaivasvat Manu, 28th Yuga cycle. So additional details have been given about the birth of Vyasadeva, the period when the Vyasadeva was born, in the commentaries by the Acharyas. So Prabhupada also mentioned this detail in the purport, and that is where I have picked it up. That detail I have picked it up from there. So as you can see, Vyasadeva was born in the regime of Vaivasvat Manu. In our previous classes, we have discussed about Manvantar avatars. So Manvantar avatar means that these 1000 yuga cycle, which is one day of Brahma. So 71, 71, 71 yugas are there. Like that 14 cycles are there. So 171 cycle of these yugas is actually ruled by one Manu. So one cycle, one Manu rules. So in Vaivasvat Manu regime, he is supposed to rule for 71 yugas. So in the 28th cycle, Vyasadeva was born. So that is being mentioned when he was born. And what does it mean by second millennium overlap the third? So it is mentioned in the commentary of the Acharyas that sometimes there is one yuga which actually appears before another yuga. Say in a normal situation, second yuga, which is the Treta yuga, should appear, and then should come the third yuga, the Dwapar yuga. But it appears from the explanation of the Acharyas that in the millennium, when Vyasadeva was born, the second yuga did not happen, and actually third yuga prematurely appeared before the second yuga. And in each yuga there are three periods. Three periods means you can say beginning, middle, and the end. So beginning period, middle period, and the end period. So beginning period is something like the 10% of the time of the yuga. Middle period is the major portion, which is the 80% of the time, and the end period is the ending period or the concluding period, which is also the 10% of the time. So Vyasadeva was born in the end period, in the last period, which is the Sad Sandhyamsha Rupa. So that is the detail, little technical detail in order to understand the second millennium overlapped with the third. Now give you an analogy, like for example, the summer period is going on in Bangalore, and the rains are going to start somewhere in the first week of or the second week of June. So what happens is the summer period, the May ends, and now in the second week of June, the rain will not start completely. There will be some showers, some small showers, etc. So this is something like called as an overlap period. Overlap means some symptoms of the previous yuga and some symptoms of the next yuga one can see. So this is actually known as the overlapping of the yugas. So that was the technical detail which was supposed to be explained in this verse. Then we go to the next verse, next two verses, which is the 15th and the 16th verse. So Anita Mataji, please.
Yes, Prabhuji. 15 and 16 meditation. Once upon a time, Vyasadeva, as the sun rose, took his morning ablution in the waters of Saraswati and sat alone to concentrate. The great sage Vyasadeva, who could see the past and future, saw anomalies that would appear in Kali Yuga due to the unseen force of time.
Yes, Mataji. Thank you very much. Okay.
So
now it is being mentioned here that once upon a time, we know which time period is being talked about here. We understood when Vyasadeva took birth. As the sun rose, he took his morning ablution. Ablution means achman. Achman means we take some water and we sip the water to purify ourselves. Like when we do arti, etc. in the morning, we take the bath. When we do arti, we do some achman. So he took his morning ablution in the waters of the Saraswati. So he had one ashram there. On the ashram was situated on the banks of Saraswati river, and there he sat alone to concentrate. Simply, like you see here, he's sitting alone to do some contemplation. He's thinking something. He's thinking about some topic. Then what he's contemplating is mentioned in the 16th verse. It is said, the great sage Vyasadeva, who could see the past and the future. So the Sanskrit for this is Paravaragyaha. Paravaragyaha means he could see the future also, he could see the past also, what happened in the past, because he was a pure soul. He could see the past and future, saw anomalies that would appear in Kali Yuga due to the unseen force of time. So anomalies, what anomalies he's going to see, that is actually mentioned in the next verse. So this is the storyline going on, so we will not actually discuss more in detail. There is nothing much to discuss in detail on these verses, so we will move ahead. Now we have some of those anomalies mentioned here in the verse number 17th and 18th, and here there is an opportunity to recite the Sanskrit verse. So I would again request Anita ji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Bhautikānām ca bhāvānām
Bhatikanam cha bhavanam
shaktihrāsam ca tatkritāṃ
shaktirasham cha tatkritam
ashraddhānāni sattvaन्
ashraddhanan nishthavan
ashraddhānāni sattvaन्
ashraddhanan nishthavan
nihi sattvaन्
nihi sattvan
durmedhan prashitayusha
dhurmedhan rishitayusha
durbhaganscha janan viksha
durbhagamsha janan viksha
munir divyena chakshusha
munir divyena chakshusha
sarvavarnashramanam
sarvavarnashramanyad
yat
sarvavarnashramanam yat
dadhyo hitam amoghadrik.
dadyo hitam amoghadrik.
Thank you, Mother. Now you can read the translation also from here, the great sage.
The great sage could see through his transcendental vision the deterioration of bodily strength due to the influence of the age. He could also see that the dull-witted, unlucky, and faithless people in general would be reduced in duration of the life and would be impatient due to lack of goodness. Thus he contemplated for the welfare of man in all statuses and orders of life.
Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Now you can see there are various characteristics or qualities of the people in Kali Yuga have been described in this verse, and these qualities are being seen or foreseen, I would say, by Srila Vyasadeva. So Vyasadeva is sitting in his ashram contemplating. He can see the future. He's a Paravaragya. He can see in the future. He can, while seeing in the future, he is observing what qualities, what characteristics of people in Kali Yuga would have. So here you can see there are several words here. Shakti Hrasam. Shakti Hrasam means their bodily strength will be very low, very deteriorated bodily strength. Then we have Ashraddhadhanan. Ashraddhadhanan means they are faithless people. They would not have interest in spiritual subject matter, faithless. Then Nihisatvan. Nihisatvan would mean impatient due to lack of goodness. They will not have much sattva guna, and because of which they will be very impatient. Probably they will have more of rajaguna or tamaguna. That will make them very impatient. Then Durmedhan. Durmedhan means dull-witted. And Hrisita Ayusha. Hrisita Ayusha means they are actually reduced in duration of life. Alpayusha. And Durbhagamsh. Durbhagamsh would mean unlucky. So you can see these qualities being mentioned by Vyasadeva here. We also studied in the earlier chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, which was the first chapter, 10th verse. Prayan alpayusha sabhya kalavasmin yuge janaha mandaha sumandamatayo mandabhagya hyupadrita. We already discussed this in the previous classes. So that is the main subject matter of this 17th and 18th verse, that Vyasdev is contemplating, sitting in his ashram, looking into the future and experiencing the qualities of the Kali Yuga people. And then he contemplated for the welfare of men in all statuses and orders of life. Sarva Varnashramanam, Sarva Varnashramanam Yad Dadhayu Dadhyo Hitam Amoghadrik. Dadhyo Hitam. Hitam means for the benefit, and Sarva Varnashramanam. Sarva Varnashramanam means those people who belong to all the Varnas and all the ashrams. Practically speaking, for all the people on earth, he wants to do them the welfare, and then he wanted to do some welfare for them, and that's what he thought, what welfare activity should I do? That's what he was contemplating. Okay, now we do recitation of these 4 verses also. Anita ji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
So, Chaturhotram Karma Shuddham
Chaturhotram karma shuddham
Prajanam Viksha Vedikam
prajanam viksha vedikam
Vyadadhad Yagya Santatyai
vyadadhat yagna satyatai
Vedamekam Chaturvidham.
vedam ekam chaturvidham
Rig Yaju Sam Atharvakhya
Rigyaju sam atharvakya
Vedash Vedashtwara Udhrata
veda chatvara udhartaha
Itihasa Puranam Cha
itihas puranam cha
Panchamo Veda Uchyate.
panchamo veda uchyate.
Yes, Mother. Thank you.
Thank
So,
you, Prabhuji.
each of these lines, 2 sets of lines, you can see here. Chatur Hotram Karma Shuddham Pragyanam Viksha Vaidikam. He saw that the sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas were means by which people's occupation could be purified. So he started to relate the lives of the people with the Vedic books. Chatur Hotram Karma Shuddham Pragyanam Prajanam Viksha Vaidikam. Prajanam Viksha Vaidikam. Then Vyadadhad Yagya Santatyai Vedam Ekam Chaturvidham. And to simplify, he divided the one Veda into 4 in order to expand them among men. So what Vyasdev saw, as we understood from the previous verse, that these people will have less intelligence, less age, they will not be having a lot of faith. So in order to make the Vedic wisdom very palatable, very easily accessible, he decided that in order to simplify the knowledge of the Vedas, he would divide one Ved into four parts, so that they can easily be expanded among men of the Kali Yuga. Then what he did, he divided the Vedas into 4, and the names are given here: Rig, Yaju, Sam, Atharva, Akhya. Rig, Yajur, Sam, Atharva, Akhya. So here he divided the Vedas into Rig, Yajus, Samaved and Atharvaved. And then besides dividing these Vedas into 4, Rigs, Yajus, Sam and Atharva, he also added Itihas Puranam cha Panchamo Ved Uchyate. Itihas and Puranam cha Panchamo Ved Uchyate. So we have, besides the Vedas, Rig, Yajur, Sam and Atharva, we also have Itihasas and Puranas. And here Bhagavatam is saying that these are actually also known as the 5th Veda. The 5th Veda. So there are actually 18 Puranas, and all of these Puranas, Mahabharata and Ramayana, they are under the category of Itihas. Histories and Puranas, they are actually known as the 5th Veda. Now here, Srila Prabhupada gives some detail in his purport about this particular aspect. What is, yeah, maybe, okay. Vyas sorted the Vedic mantras. Okay, Mataji, can you read this?
Yes, Prabhuji. Vyasa sorted the Vedic mantras. When Lord Brahma first spoke the four Vedas with his four mouths, the mantras were mixed together like an unsorted collection of various types of jewels. Srila Vyasadeva sorted the Vedic mantras into four divisions, samhitas, which thus became the recognizable Rig, Atharva, Yajur, and Samvedas.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
So this is coming from the purport of the 12th canto, 6th chapter and 50th verse. The purport in that chapter is Vyasadev sorted the Vedic mantras. So some history has been given. When these Vedic mantras were spoken, the Vedic mantras were spoken by Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma had four mouths, four faces. So from each face, these mantras were coming out. Each phase were like you can say that four people talking together, four people talking at the same time. So all the mantras were coming out. So that is what is mentioned here. The mantras were mixed together like an unsorted collection of various type of jewels. Now assume you have four type of jewels. One is of red color, one is of green color, another one is of blue color, another one is of maybe purple color, and all four kind of jewels are mixed together in a bag. So the mantras that were flowing out from the lotus mouth of Brahmaji, it was something like unsorted collection of jewels. So what did Vyasadev do? Vyasadev sorted them properly. Which was coming out from one mouth were sorted out separately. Which was coming out from the second mouth were sorted out separately. Third, fourth, like this. And then sorted the Vedic mantras into four divisions, which are known as samhitas, and which thus became the recognizable Rig, Atharva, Yajur, and Samvedas. So here some additional detail I have added. Actually, this is coming from the Subodhini, where the author has added this detail into the Subodhini book, and important for us to discuss it here. Then coming to the second point, which we were discussing in the verse here, histories and Puranas are called the fifth Veda. So this particular point is coming from this particular purport by Prabhupada. And Anita ji, can you please read this?
Yes, Prabhuji. Puranas and Mahabharata as part of Vedas. As such, the Puranas and Mahabharata were made from related historical facts which explain the teaching of the four Vedas. There is no point in doubting the authority of the Puranas and Mahabharatas as parts and parcels of the Vedas. In the Chandogya Upanishad 7.1.4, the Puranas and Mahabharata, generally known as histories, are mentioned as the fifth Veda.
Yeah. So the point here is, dear devotees, this is a specific point that Prabhupada is mentioning here, that there are some class of men or some category of people you will find who don't recognize Puranas and Itihasas as part of Vedas. They don't consider it. They do actually consider Vedic books like Rig, Yajur, Sam and Atharva Ved. They consider them as Shrutis or part of Vedic literature, but not the Puranas and history. So in order to make this point very clear, Prabhupada is mentioning in the purport that these Puranas and Mahabharata were made from related historical facts, which explain the teachings of the four Vedas. Vedas are philosophical in nature. Vedas don't have stories in them in general. But the philosophy of Vedas can be understood by way of stories, and these stories are mentioned in Puranas and Mahabharata. And Prabhupada in the purport also gives additional reference, which is from the Chandogya Upanishad. This is the reference given by Prabhupada on the Vedas, on the histories and the Puranas being accepted as the fifth Veda, Pancham Veda. Okay, now we can see this table. In the 21st and the 22nd verse, the further detail is given that when Vyasadev divided these four Vedas into Rig Ved, Sam Ved, Yajur Ved, Atharva Ved and Puranas, he then called his disciples, and to each disciple he gave the he made him the in charge of each of these Vedas. So for example, he called Paila Rishi, and Paila Rishi was made the in charge of Rig Veda. And he instructed Paila Rishi that you take this Rig Veda and you further divide Rig Veda into further books. More books you divide them, and then you actually go and expand these knowledge. You go out and expand this knowledge through your disciples. So Rig Veda was given to Paila Rishi. Similarly, Sam Ved was given to Jaimini, Yajur Ved was given to Vaishampayana, and Atharva Ved was given to Sumantu Muni. And Puranas were given to Rom Harshana Suta. Like this, Vyasdev, in order to benefit the people of Kali Yuga, he divided the knowledge of Vedas into 4 parts and then delegated his disciple to each of the Vedic knowledge and requested them to divide them further and go out and expand them. So that's what we need to know about. Okay, now I would like to invite Manish ji to recite
Yes,
the 23rd verse. So you would see here, the topic now is the expansion of Vedic knowledge. So, ta et rishayo vedam
Aita Rishyo Vedam
swam swam vyasanna nane katha
Swayam Swam Vasanna Anekatha
shishyaye prashishyais tachishyayer
Shishyeya Prashishyer Tachyer
vedaste shakhino bhavan
Vedasate Shakino Bhavan
vedaste shakhino bhavan. Sorry.
Vedasate Shakino Bhavan.
Yes, thank you. So then it mentions ta eta rishiyo vedam. Each of these sages divided up his Veda. Now Paila Rishi divided Rig Veda into many divisions. Swam swam vyasyan anekatha, into many divisions. He divided Rig Veda into further many divisions. Then he gave it to Shishya, Prashishyais, Tat Shishya. So there are 3 times Shishya word is coming. So it means his disciples. Then the disciples gave it to his grand disciples, and then the great grand disciples. Shishya, Shishya, Shishya. So the disciple of disciple, disciple of disciple of disciple, like that. 3 levels. And they were passed on to disciples, grand disciples, and great grand disciples. Vedas te shakhino, shakha means branch. Vedas te shakhino bhavan. Then developed many branches. So like you see, one Ved was given to a particular disciple, then he gave it to his disciple and divided into further divisions. Like that, many branches, many divisions were developed. So here, a little, we would like to reflect a little bit about this particular aspect of expansion of Vedic knowledge. So here, little bit reflection on how Srila Prabhupada also expanded this Vedic wisdom that is now available to us in the form of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and many other books. We have seen so many books. So first of all, like Vyasdev, in order to simplify this knowledge for the people of Kali Yuga, similarly, Srila Prabhupada also has simplified this knowledge for the people of this age by writing these books into English language. See, Hindi or maybe the Indian languages are not spoken all over the world, but English is one language which is very prevalent and spoken mostly in all parts of the world. So Prabhupada, in order to expand this knowledge, wrote his books into English language. And not only wrote his books into English language, but he wrote these books in such a structured way, in such a very nice way, that the understanding of Vedic wisdom became very easy. How? Like you can see, these verses are available in Devanagari script in Sanskrit language. So he also made this Sanskrit language in Devanagari script available into Roman transliterated script. Roman transliterated script means, like we see here, ta et rishayo vedam So if somebody knows the English language, the person can easily read and pronounce the recitation of these verses, isn't it? So he did the transliteration, which is helpful in Ucharan. Ucharan means pronunciation. Then not only he did this transliteration of the verses, but he also helped divide these words, divide these letters in the verses into different words, which is known as Sandhi Vichhed. Tad eta rishyo vedam. Now, if you go and read the Hindi Bhagavatam, the Hindi version, you will see that many times these words are actually joined together. So he divided the words into several parts so that the reading becomes easy. Then he did the synonyms. He provided the synonyms, the translation of each of these words, which is known as Padarth Ukti. Pad Arth Ukti. The Pad means the words and Arth means the meaning. The Padarth Ukti, he did that. Then what is available in a form of a poem, he made it available into a translation in a prose form, that is known as Vakya Yojan. And ultimately he provided Vigraha, he provided the purports. Purports means in order to understand in what context it has been written, in what is the intention of the author behind this particular verse, then he gave purport, that is known as Vigraha or Tark. So like this, he made this Vedic knowledge accessible to all the people in general in this age, and that too in a very popular language known as English. He made this knowledge available. Now, why I'm telling it so and why I'm raising it this point is because any knowledge, if we start or if we stop propagating this knowledge, if we stop expanding that knowledge, actually the knowledge starts to become dull. The knowledge starts to become lost. If you remember in Bhagavad Gita also, there is a verse regarding this. So can anyone from the class remember that particular verse from Bhagavad Gita where Lord Krishna says that the knowledge is lost? Do you remember the chapter? Anyone remember the chapter?
Chapter 3, Shloka 2.
Chapter 4.
Chapter 4, Shloka 2. Okay. Yes. So the verse goes like this: Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu sakale nehe mahata yogo nashtah parantapa. So here Lord Krishna is saying that in the beginning I had given this knowledge to such and such person, but because of the effect of time, because of the power of time, this knowledge got lost. So similarly, if the Vedic knowledge like Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavad Gita is not passed on to the next generation, it is not practiced, the culture is not practiced, then there is all danger that this knowledge will get lost. And here there is one analogy given by Shukdev Goswami himself later in Srimad Bhagavatam, where he says the Vedic knowledge, if not propagated, is lost. And the analogy he gives is like the grass grows on the pathways if they are not used for a long time. So in the villages, you would know there's a Hindi word known as pagdandi. In Kannada, I don't know what do you call it, but in Hindi we call it pagdandi. Pagdandi means in the village where there is almost everywhere there is a grassy fields, and there's a small pathway that is created. Why? Because people continue to walk on that pathway on a regular basis. If they have to go from one village to the another village, then there is a set pathway, and because they continue to walk on that pathway, there does not grow any grass there, because people are continuing going here and there, coming from there, going from here one place to the another place like that. But if people stop using that pathway, then what happens? Rain will come, and the rain will come, there will be some vegetation growing on the pathway. The people don't use it, more rains will come, more vegetation will grow. Ultimately, if people stop using that pathway will be covered by grass. The pathway will disappear ultimately. So similarly, the Vedic knowledge is like that. in order to preserve a Vedic knowledge, in order to maintain this Vedic knowledge, this knowledge has to be used, to be practiced, to be discussed on a regular basis. So that is what important for us to realize and appreciate when we are discussing this verse, expansion of the Vedic knowledge. And also we should understand that we cannot repay the debt of the acharyas who have actually made this Vedic knowledge accessible to us, starting from Srila Vyasdev. You can see how compassionate Vyasdev is, that he is thinking of compiling and editing this knowledge into a form of books, not only in the form of books, into form of simplified books, and further simplification is done by the disciples of Vyasdev. So we cannot repay the debt of our previous acharyas. We can only make some impression or some repayment we can do of this debt only if we also in our own capacity try to propagate this knowledge, try to expand this knowledge as best as possible. So that is a couple of points when we are discussing this particular verse, the 23rd verse. Okay, Manishji, now we go to the next verse.
Yes.
Here we will see the compassionate nature of Srila Vyasdev. Ta eva veda durmedhair
Tateva Veda Durmedhair
dharayante purushair yatha
Dharayanti Purusharyatha
evam chakara bhagavan
Evam Chakara Bhagavan
vyasah kripana vatsalah.
Vyasa Krupana Vatsala.
Yeah. So ta eva veda durmedhair. Durmedhair, medha means what? Medha means intelligence. Durmedhair means not very intelligent, less intelligent. Ta eva veda durmedhair. I think this is the blue one, so let us start from the bottom. Dharayante purushair yatha. So these first two lines actually are captured in the bottom line here. So they might be assimilated by less intellectual men. Rather, what we do is we start from the bottom line of this verse and then go Vyasaha Kripana Vatsalaha. Thus the great sage Vyasdev, who is very kind to the ignorant masses. Vyasaha Kripana Vatsala. Kripana Vatsala means ignorant masses. Then what did he do? Evam Chakara Bhagavan. He edited the Vedas. So the word Chakar means editing of the Vedas. Evam Chakar Bhagavan. Why the word Bhagavan is being used for Vyasdev? Because Vyasdev is actually the literary incarnation of the Supreme Lord. He is the avatar of Lord Shri Krishna. He is the Shakti-Avesh avatar. Then Ta eva veda durmaidher dharyanti purushair yatha. So they might be assimilated by less intellectual men. So durmaidher here means less intellectual men. So ta eva veda durmaidher dharyante purushair yatha. So they might be assimilated. Assimilated means dharyante. So the great sage Vyasdev, who is very kind to the ignorant masses, edited the Vedas. So they might be assimilated by less intellectual men. Now let us see in the purport. There are several important points here regarding what are Vedas and for whom they are actually meant for. So Manishji, can you read read the first point first?
Vedas are not for ordinary man. The seed of all knowledge or the Veda is not a subject matter which can easily be understood by an ordinary man.
Yeah, so the very first point is Vedas are not easy to understand. They are philosophical in nature, and understanding philosophy actually requires quite some intelligence. So this is not for any ordinary person, as we see. So Vedas are not for ordinary men, as we already saw in the verses before. Okay, now the second point, Prabhu.
Misconception. A class of man who claim Brahminical qualification simply by their birthright in the family of a Brahmana claim that the study of the Vedas is a monopoly of the Brahmana caste only. Another section of the people take this as an injustice to members of other caste who do not happen to take birth in a Brahmana family, but both are misguided.
Yeah, so here Prabhupada is also clarifying one misconception. Sometimes people think that just because they have taken birth in a Brahmanical family, they are only entitled. They are the only people who are entitled to read Vedas or disseminate the knowledge of the Vedas. And there is second category of people who are not taking birth in the Brahmanical family, so they protest. They say that this is an injustice done to our category of people. But actually, both are misguided. So the birth is not the criteria. Actually, this is what Prabhupada is trying to mention here. That if you have taken the birth in a Brahmanical family, maybe you have parents who have surname Brahmanical surname like Sharma or maybe Tripathi or Trivedi or Chaturvedi like that, then it does not mean that you are the only person who would recite the Vedas. Now, what is the qualification for Vedas is mentioned in the bottom point. Prabhu, please read.
Therefore, the subject matter is understood by persons with exceptional qualities of goodness. Persons who are in the modes of passion and ignorance are unable to understand the subject matter of the Vedas.
So, the very objectively Prabhupada is writing here, what is the real quality that is needed for studying Vedas, to understand Vedas, that is the exceptional qualities of goodness. He's not mentioning only goodness, he's saying that exceptional qualities of goodness. These are not very commonly available in people in general. Persons who are in mode of passion and ignorance are unable to understand the subject matter of the Vedas. And how do we know? In the past classes, in the previous classes, we understand that who have the exceptional qualities of goodness, these people are actually known as Brahmanas. They are actually the Brahmanas. So Brahmana is not decided by birth, whether he has taken birth in a Brahmanical family. Actually, it is decided by his modes of material nature. If he is primarily situated in goodness, he is qualified to be a Brahmana, like that. Okay. We now read the 25th verse. So in the 24th verse, the eva veda durmedher dharyante purusher yatha. Here, assimilated by less intellectual men. In the 25th verse, actually, the description has been given who are actually the less intellectual people. So, Manish ji, please go ahead.
Yes.
Stri Shudra Dvija Bandhunam
Stri Shudra Dvijabandhunam
Traina Shruti Gochara
Traina Shruti Gochara
Karma Shreyasi Mudhanam
Karma Shreyasi Mudhanam
Shreya Evam Bhaved Iha
Shreya Evan Bhavediha
Iti Bharatam Akhyanam
Iti Bharatam Akhyanam
Kripaya Munina Kritam.
Krupaya Munina Kritam.
Yes. Now, Stri Shudra Dvij Bandhu Naam. The women, the Shudras and the Dvij Bandhus were not qualified to hear the Vedas. So there you would find there is a statement from the Vedic literature where people might in this particular age might take very strong and serious objection to. So how can you say a particular class or a particular gender or a particular category of people, the women, the Shudras and the Dvij Bandhus. So we will explain you Dvij Bandhus were not qualified to hear the Vedas. Why? And then if they are not qualified to hear the Vedas, then what did Vyasdev do? Karma Shreyasi Mudhanam Shreya Evam Bhavet Iha. Thinking what would be best for them to achieve ultimate goal of life. Shreya, Shreyasi, Karma Shreyasi. Karma Shreyasi means what would be the best, what would be the best solution for these people. Thinking what would be the best for them to achieve ultimate goal of life. Shreya Evam Bhavet Iha. Shreya, ultimate goal of life. What did Vyasdev do? Iti Bharatam Akhyanam Kripaya Munina Kritam. Kripaya Munina Kritam. Vyas by his mercy wrote Mahabharat. So Mahabharat is a document or is a book which is actually containing a lot of stories, and Vedas are those books which are containing a lot of philosophical verses. So stories are much more simpler to understand than the philosophy. So Vyasdev, what did he do? Because he wanted to propagate this Vedic knowledge, so he actually the essence of the Vedic knowledge or the learnings of the Vedic knowledge, he compiled in such a way that they are in the form of stories, like in the Mahabharata, and these are not actually false stories. They are actually belonging to the history, to the itihas. So he compiled this book called Mahabharata. And who are the people who are actually qualified for this particular book, Mahabharata? For them, Vedas were expected to be much more terse, much more difficult or assimilate to understand. These category of people were the women, the Shudras and the Dvija Bandhus were not qualified to hear the Vedas. Now, let me spend some time, because if I don't clarify this particular aspect that the women are less intelligent or Shudras are less qualified or Dvij Bandhus are less qualified, that might leave you maybe in some bad taste that maybe Srimad Bhagavatam actually is very partial to us. The Bhagavatam doesn't see women or Shudra or Dvij Bandhus in a very good light. So this need to be understood in a proper way, because many times when people don't understand this particular concept in a proper way, they are misunderstood and they lose respect for the Shastra or the scripture. So, first of all, before we enter into the topic of women and Shudras, etc., let us see some of the points that are mentioned in the purport. So, who is a Dvij Bandhu? Manishji, can you read this?
Yes. The Dvija Bandhus are those who are born in the families of Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, or the spiritually cultured families, but who themselves are not equal to their forefathers. Such descendants are not recognized as such for want of purificatory achievements.
Purificatory achievements, yes.
Oh, purificatory achievements.
Yeah, purificatory achievements are actually sanskar, like Garbhadan sanskar, Upnayan sanskar, etc., etc. So Dvij Bandhus are those category of people who take birth in high class families. High class family means the highest class is Brahmanical class, then the Kshatriya class and the Vaishya class. So these are considered to be high class families. So Dvij Bandhus are those people who actually take birth in the high class families, but they are in actual gunas, in actual quality, they are not equal to their forefathers. So their forefather may display the traits of a Brahmana, or they may display the traits of Kshatriya or a Vaishya. But these Dvij Bandhus, they don't exhibit those traits. Because of what reason? Because they were not undergone through purificatory achievements. Like in Garbhadan Sanskar, there is no Garbhadan Sanskar done for their birth. And in general, they don't have that inclination for becoming a Brahmana or a Kshatriya or a Vaishya. So such category of people are known as Dvij Bandhus. Ultimately, what is being mentioned here is that these people don't have the capability, the inclination, the intelligence, the likingness, etc., to go and read Shastric text as difficult as the Vedic text, although they have taken birth in those families. That is the one point which is known as Dvija Bandhu. Okay. Now the second point, Prabhu.
Why Mahabharata for less intelligent? The less intelligent classes of men are devoid of necessary qualifications to understand the purpose of the transcendental Vedas. For them, the Mahabharata was prepared. The less intelligent are more interested in stories than in philosophy, and therefore the philosophy of the Vedas in the form of Bhagavad Gita, which is part of Mahabharata, is spoken by the Lord Shri Krishna.
Yes. Now you see the kind of thought process Vyasdev had gone when he was compiling Mahabharata. He was thinking of the Kali Yuga people, less intelligent, etc., etc., less qualified to read these Vedic books, etc. And then he was specifically thinking or worried about those category of people who are even more less qualified or less intelligent to read Vedic books. And for these people, he devised this book called Mahabharata. And this book is not a philosophy, this book is a story, in a story form. So when they read the story form, they can actually pick up the philosophy which is actually presented in the form of a story. And the essence of all this Vedic knowledge, which is actually Bhagavad Gita, this has been very intelligently placed by Srila Vyasadeva in the middle of Mahabharata, where the climax comes, where actually the war is about to start, and that's where Lord Krishna speaks the very essence of all the Vedic knowledge in the form of Bhagavad Gita in Mahabharata. So what happens is, when these less intelligent people would read Mahabharata, they will come to the understanding of the philosophy of Vedas through stories, and also they will contemplate and read the Bhagavad Gita, which is actually the essence of the whole Vedic literature. So that is what the thought process of Srila Vyasadeva when he compiled Mahabharata for the less intelligent, less intellectually oriented class of people in Kali Yuga. Now we come to the point what actually it means when we say that women are less intelligent, or Shudras are actually belonging to the less intelligent class of men. That's what we need to understand. So here we need to understand it from the proper perspective. And less intelligent, first of all, we need to understand what it does not mean. So less intelligent here actually does not mean the information processing capability, which in general people in the world today identify intelligence with. So people would think that if he can crack the IIT exam, or if he can crack MBBS exam, or if he can hold some PhD degree, have all kind of books he has read, then he's intelligent. No, that is not the criteria of intelligence in the from the Vedic perspective or from the spiritual perspective. That is not the criteria of intelligence. So the criteria of intelligence actually is, so before I explain that criteria, we need to understand two things. One is that we are soul, and we are actually covered in a body. So the body is the material aspect and the soul is the spiritual aspect. So when we say the Stri or the women is less intelligent, or a female is a less intelligent person, first of all, we need to understand ultimately all of us are, whether we are in a female body or whether we are in a male body, all of us are Prakriti. All of us are feminine in gender as far as our identity as soul is concerned. Bhagavad Gita also mentions. So there is Bhagavad Gita also mentioned in the 7th chapter, where the Lord says that I have one inferior Prakriti and one Prakriti superior to us. Inferior Prakriti involves earth, air, fire, water, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. And superior Prakriti actually includes the Jivas, the living entities. So we are Prakriti, and there is only one Purusha, and that Purusha is Lord Krishna. So from the spiritual perspective, from the Tattva perspective, there is only one enjoyer, and there is only and everyone else is a Prakriti, everyone else is a female. So that is one part. However, this Prakriti, this Jiva, when it is conditioned in nature, when it is in the material body, the Jiva actually falsely thinks of oneself as Purusha, that I am the enjoyer. So that is the understanding of the living entity as an enjoyer. Now the soul in a female body and the soul in the male body, both of them falsely consider themselves as enjoyer because they are conditioned in nature. So this is something we need to understand when we are talking about female, male, etc. Now each soul, when it is in a particular body, has a particular psychophysical nature. A soul in a woman body has a particular psychophysical nature. A soul in a male body has a particular psychophysical nature. So what happens is, when Prakriti gives a soul a female body, what is the typical psychophysical nature that lady or that women will have? Generally speaking, generally speaking, the women psychophysical nature is more inclining towards emotional nature, more sentimental nature. So there are two aspects to nature. One is emotional, another one is rational. Rational means looking at things from a more rational perspective. Emotional means looking at things at a more emotional perspective. Now, why women are made more emotional? Because women have been given this responsibility to become mothers by material nature, by the Supreme Lord. That is why they are given a female body. A man does not become pregnant or does not conceive a child. Only a woman conceive a child. And when the woman becomes a mother, in order to give herself selflessly, the women, that emotion, that the emotion, actually the emotional richness or the excessive emotional nature in a mother or excessive emotional nature in a lady or in a woman is actually a strength when it comes to performing this function of motherhood. Why? Because when the lady is emotionally enriched, then only she can give herself selflessly to the service or to the care of the child she gives birth to. If a child, the children, specifically when they are small, when they are young, they behave in a very irrational way. And if a mother actually start to see the behavior of child in a rational way, she cannot actually do the job very nicely. That is why the lady or the woman is given this excessive emotional nature to perform this functionality of a mother. Now, when a lady or a woman is expected to read these philosophical subjects, then what typically happens is that the emotional nature which is excessive in the female body overpowers or overshadows the rational capability. It does not mean that the women are not rational. The only thing is they are given excessive emotions in order to perform a certain function of motherhood, and those emotional functions come in the way of dealing with subject matter which are more rational in nature. So that is the idea. So when we say that the women are less intelligent, the idea is that the capacity to digest or to assimilate rational subject matter in women is relatively weaker compared to the male body. Although in the Kali Yuga stage, generally either it is in the male body or in the female body, everyone is a conditioned soul. Everyone is actually affected by the modes of nature that is brought together by the because of the body in which we are. But if the in ladies actually it is a little more because of the emotional excessive behavior that they have it. So that is the way we can understand why here women have been classified as less intelligent. However, here we also need to understand, if the women is already into spiritual subjects like Krishna Bhakti, already understands the goal of life as transcendence, goal of life is to serve Lord Krishna, then she is much more intelligent compared to a male who does not acknowledge this particular goal of life. So if we analyze this whole subject matter of women being less intelligent, as mentioned in several places in the scriptures, we can understand it in a proper perspective. And the idea is, when the women actually perform this function of motherhood, she feels satisfied, she feels taken care, and she performs this function of taking care of the family, taking care of the children, etc. Because these emotions are given an expression, these emotions are given a particular proper venting out, they can perform this function very nicely and they feel much satisfied. So that is how they can grow in their spiritual life, if they acknowledge their emotional faculty within them and perform the function of a mother. And that is why if they continue to take shelter of the books like Mahabharata and something like that, they can do their bhakti in a much more I would say efficient way compared to dealing with a lot of tough spiritual subject matter. So this is the point here with respect to women. Now with respect to Shudras, the similar argument applies, because Shudras, now just now we discussed somewhere here, I think qualification for Vedas. Subject matter is understood by persons with exceptional qualities of goodness. Now, when we talk about Shudras, what are we talking about? We are talking about a soul captured in a body where mode of ignorance and mode of passion, Tamoguna and Rajoguna, are more in excess. So, even if the Shudra or this category of person want to understand Vedas, it will be very difficult job for this particular person. So this is the reason why it is being mentioned less intelligent class of men. But for these category of people also, the philosophy is available in a more palatable manner in the form of stories and also in the form of Bhagavad Gita in a book called Mahabharata. So this is the understanding of the verse 1.4.25. Okay, Manish ji, would you now like to continue with the 26th and 27th verse? Yes. You need to read the first part here only.
Yeah. Vyasadeva's dissatisfaction. O twice born Brahmanas, still in his mind was not satisfied, although he engaged himself in working for the total welfare of all people. Thus, the sage, being dissatisfied at heart, at once began to reflect, because he knew the essence of religion, and he said within himself.
Yeah, okay. Now we are moving to the next section. So previous section was Vyasadev divides the Vedas. So Vyasadev has divided the Vedas into four Vedas and the Puranas. And here some reference we have understood that why, for whom the Mahabharata, book like Mahabharata is meant for. And then the next part is, the next theme is Vyasadev's dissatisfaction and contemplation. Now Vyasadev becomes dissatisfied. O twice born Brahmanas, still his mind was not satisfied. Still means what? He has divided the Vedas into four parts and the fifth Veda, the Puranas, but still his mind was not satisfied. Why? Although he engaged himself in working for the total welfare of all people. So here you can see Vyasadev is doing all this for whom? He is doing all this for others, for the people of Kali Yuga in general. And his intentions are very good. He wants to do some welfare. He wants to do some good to them. So normally, when we do some selfless activity, when we do some activity which is selfless, which is devoid of any selfish endeavor, then the end result of doing that activity is we get satisfaction in our heart. We get satisfaction in our heart. But here, Vyasadev, it is being mentioned that still his mind was not satisfied, although he engaged himself in working for the total welfare of all people. Now we will see what Vyasadev identify the reason. Later on we will see that. Thus the sage, being dissatisfied at heart, at once began to reflect, because he knew the essence of religion, and he said within himself. So here the point for us to learn is that when we are doing something wrong, we are sometimes not on the right path. Sometimes our self-introspection, our own contemplation actually can reveal us where actually we are going wrong. And Srila Vyasadev is doing that contemplation. He divided the Vedas into, I would say, 4-5 categories for the welfare of people. Still doing that, he was not feeling satisfied. He started to contemplate. What is the reason I am not feeling satisfied? Although I am doing it for the welfare of others. This is a selfless activity I am doing, but still I am not feeling satisfied. What is wrong with me? Then Srila Prabhupada, Vyasadev says to himself, Manishji?
Yeah. I have, under strict disciplinary vows, unpretentiously worshipped the Vedas, the Guru, and the altar of sacrifice. I have also abided by the rulings, and I have shown the import of disciple succession through the explanation of the Mahabharata, by which even women, Shudras, and others can see the path of religion.
Yeah, so here he is contemplating that I have done so much. Disciplinary vows, unpretentiously worshipped the Vedas, Guru I have worshipped, the altar of sacrifice I have worshipped, I have abided by all my rulings, all the import of disciplic succession, all what I know, I have already explained it through Mahabharata, by even which the less intelligent class of people can also come on the path of religion, done everything for the welfare, but still I am feeling dissatisfied. What is the reason? Then Vyasdev actually does this contemplation, and now I would like to invite Vasudevanji to kindly help me recite the verse. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Yeah. So the 30th verse goes like this. Tathapi bat me dayyo
Tatapi patmetayyo
Yatma chaivatmana vibhuhu
Hyatma chaivatmana vibhuhu
Asampanna iva bhati
Asampannaiva bhati
Brahma varchasya sattamaha.
Brahmavarchasya sattamaha.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. So, tathapi bat me dahiyo. But still my soul situated in the body. Hi atma chaivatmana vibhu. Though powerful and austerity, uh, though powerful with austerity and knowledge by nature. So, first two lines is Vyasadev does some self-evaluation. He says that my soul situated in my body, in this body, although it is very powerful, why? Because there have been a lot of austerity I have done. There is a lot of knowledge I already have by nature, which is though very powerful with austerity and knowledge. Asampanna. Sampanna means very prosperous, Iva bhati. It appears, Iva means it appears. It appears very incomplete and inferior. It completes very inferior and incomplete. Iva bhati. ऐसा प्रतीत होता है. असंपन्न, विहीन, असंपन्न. It appears very incomplete and inferior. Brahma varchasya sattamaha. Even though endowed with power arising from studying the Vedas. Ultimately, Vyasdev is analyzing himself that although I have done a lot of austerity, I have all the knowledge, I have so much power which comes from studying the Vedas, but still the soul situated in this body appears incomplete and inferior. So he is kind of contemplating, he is expressing the dissatisfaction he is actually going through. Now let us go to the 31st verse. So the 31st verse goes like this. Prabhuji, can you once again help me? Kim va bhagavata dharma Vasudevan Prabhu, you are...
Sorry, Prabhuji, I was muted. Kim va bhagavata dharma
Na prayena nirupitaha
na prayena nirupitaha
Priyaha paramahansanam Ta eva hyachuta priyaha.
Sa eva hyachuta priyaha.
Very nice. Thank you. So, Kim va bhagavata dharma. Now, Vyasdev in the previous verse does this self-contemplation, self-meditation, self-analysis. Here in this verse, he identifies the reason. What is the reason? He would say, Kim va bhagavata dharma. Maybe it is because, this may be because devotional service of the Lord, Bhagavata dharma. This may be because Bhagavata dharma is not specifically pointed out. Na prayena nirupitaha. So Vyasdev has written massive amount of literature. The Vedas he has written Puranas, he has written Itihasas. And after doing all that compilation, he thought maybe I missed on one point. What is that point? Kim va bhagavata dharma. I have probably forgotten or have not done specifically pointed out. Pointed out means although I may have mentioned it, I have mentioned Bhagavat Dharma in my books, but I have not pointed out, I have not specifically identified that Bhagavat Dharma to be the topmost dharma. This may be because devotional service of the Lord, which is Bhagavad Dharma, is not specifically pointed out. Nirupitaha. Nirupitaha. So, Priyaha Paramahamsanam Ta Eva Hi Achyuta Priya. And what is this Bhagavad Dharma? This Bhagavad Dharma is the loving, pure devotional service of the Lord. And what is the quality of this devotional service? This bhakti, which is dear both to the perfect beings, Paramhamsanam, and to the infallible Lord Achyuta. So this bhakti is dear to Paramhamsas. This bhakti is dear to the Lord. But I have not specifically identified this to be the topmost dharma, this to be the primemost occupational duty for the people in general. This may be because devotional service of the Lord is not specifically pointed out. Specifically pointed out, now one might challenge that in Bhagavad Gita also there is bhakti, there is pointed out, but it is being mentioned here, or we can understand it like that in Bhagavad Gita we will find lot of subject matter, and then in that subject matter bhakti is one part of it. So people may not easily decipher, people may not easily identify it. So this is something is not specifically pointed out. That is the main concern by Vyasdev here. Okay, now I have remaining only 2 verses. So I will give the opportunity to Vidya Mataji. So Vidya ji,
yes, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, can you read the text here?
Yes, Prabhuji. 32, Narad Muni arrives. As mentioned before, Narad reaches the cottage of Krishna Dvaipayana Vyas on the banks of the Saraswati, just as Vyasdeva was regretting his defects.
Now you see the picture here where Vyasdev is contemplating, is sitting in contemplation, and then in the background Narad Muni is arriving to the ashram. As mentioned before, Narad reached the cottage of Krishna Dvaipayan Vyas on the banks of Saraswati, just as Vyasdev was regretting his defects. So Vyasdev is contemplating, he is already reached to some conclusion. He has already pointed out that maybe it is because I have not pointed out bhakti specifically when I have done all this compilation of many books. So this is simply a storyline, so we will doesn't have much to discuss here. We will move ahead. And Mataji, can you read the purport point here?
Yes, Prabhuji. Vyasa's dissatisfaction is produced by the Lord. Lacking complete knowledge and being dissatisfied are impossible for Vyasa. Since he is an avatar of the Lord, these conditions were strongly produced by Lord Krishna himself in order to manifest the Bhagavatam, which is non-different from him. Saratha Darshini.
Yeah, Sarartha Darshini. Now this particular point from the purport I have picked up from the Sarartha Darshini commentary of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Although Prabhupada ji also mentioned this point in the purport, but the way it is being mentioned here, I thought it was a little more understandable. So I picked it up from Sarartha Darshini. So what is being mentioned here in the purport by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is lacking complete knowledge and being dissatisfied is impossible for Vyas because he is an avatar of the Lord. So because he is avatar of the Lord, it is not possible that he will feel dissatisfied or he will feel that he does not have any knowledge. That is the point what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is making. So from where this dissatisfaction is coming? Then this dissatisfaction, this feeling of dissatisfaction actually is being produced by Lord Krishna himself. Why? Because the Lord wanted Bhagavatam to manifest on this planet, which is actually non-different from him. So this is the purport given by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that actually it is unbelievable for me to understand or to accept that Vyasdev would feel dissatisfied or Vyasdev would feel lacking complete knowledge. So that is the point raised by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Okay, now coming to the concluding verse of the class today. Mataji, can you please read this?
Yes, Prabhuji. 33. Vyasadeva's reception. At the auspicious arrival of Sri Narada, Sri Vyasadeva got up respectfully and worshipped him, giving him veneration equal to that given to Brahmaji, the creator.
Yes. Now you can see here, as soon as the disciple was in some doubt, in some, we see it was the will of the providence, as in the previous purport we understood that actually it is all engineered by Lord Krishna. His Gurudev, Narad Muni, is coming and coming to the ashram of Srila Vyasadeva. So at the auspicious arrival of Sri Narad, Sri Vyasadeva got up respectfully and worshipped him, giving him the veneration equal to that given to Brahmaji, the creator. So also we see the Vaishnava Achar, the behavior, the etiquettes in the Vaishnava community when the Guru is there in front of us. How do we respect the Guru? So Vyasadeva stood up respectfully and gave him all kind of welcome, all kind of nice Vaishnava welcome was given to Narad Muni. Here another point that we need to understand is that how strong we may be in our life, we all are subject to certain weaknesses, and because of these weaknesses we are all subject to take instruction from our Guru, who can actually help us, guide us to remove those obstacles in the form of doubts, in the form of weaknesses, etc. So although Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is mentioning here that Vyasadeva does not have any lack of knowledge, does not have any kind of dissatisfaction because he is the avatar of the Lord, but just to give us this lesson, we can take this lesson that however strong, however intelligent we may be, everyone needs a spiritual master, everyone needs a Guru whom he can fall back upon to solve the problems of the life, and the biggest problem of the life is birth, death, old age and disease. And through the lotus mouth of the Guru we receive this spiritual knowledge through which we can overcome these 4 defects of life, which is birth, old age, death and disease. So that is the conclusion of the class today. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. We can discuss the comments and questions in a short while, but before that, just like to announce that the services for the next class, Vanaja Mataji will be reciting the Mangalacharan prayers. I don't see Vanaja Mataji on the. I see her on the list of the students, and the summary will be by Jeevan Radha Govind Prabhu. So Prabhuji, you have full 1 week for doing the service, the summary service, and Vanaja Mataji, you will be reciting the Mangalacharan prayers in the next class.
Yes, Mother. Yes,
Okay.
Prabhuji.
Very nice. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. We can have some discussion, questions, and so on. So in the question,
Hare
first of all, yeah, Prabhuji, just 1 minute. I would just like to ask, because there are many ladies and women. So the explanation that I gave for 1.4.25, does that make sense, or do you have any feeling like that the Bhagavatam actually is a little bit impartial to us? Any representative from the Mataji group? Rupali Rana ji, Hare Krishna, welcome to you. Vijay Lakshmi Mataji, Hare Krishna, welcome.
Prabhu?
Yes, Vijay Lakshmi Mataji, you would be the best person to challenge. I picked up the right person. Yeah.
I know you will call my name.
Okay. Yes. So we can have some wrestling now together.
I know. Prabhu, actually, I don't know whether you call me because you thought I'm intelligent enough.
No, no, you are
Or-
intelligent for sure because you are coming Bhagavatam, you are reading Bhagavatam, so you are certainly very intelligent.
Okay, Prabhu. Because first I want to know the assumption on which platform I am.
Hmm.
Before you, the less intelligent or
No, but
equal? Or...
see the point is the point is there are some sentences like that which are not understood with a calm mind, and there are not many people who can actually explain that. Even I did not know if I would not uh, try to understand them with the help of some senior devotees whom I actually refer to when I am trying to understand these particular aspects. So otherwise, it is very difficult to go to a class and say women are less intelligent, and there are probably more than 50% of the students are women. So I just want to check with the devotees, specifically the women devotees. Do you think it makes sense whatever I explained to you?
Prabhu, I was in the same page when you were mentioning that each and every soul, we are just embodied, and this is just the body part. Like the gender
Correct.
difference is only the body part.
Body part, correct.
So we are in the same page in that. So I have nothing to. I mean, you have really correctly said that, and that's perfect. And as the woman also, you said that we are emotionally more inclined because we are the all inclusive type of people. Like we are able to become mothers and be selfless, and these are all the qualities which the creator has given to this set of creation, right? There are so many creations. There is an ant, there is a cockroach, there is a lizard. Everything has got its own purpose. So a man cannot be as selfless as a woman. So in that way, emotionally, we are more charged than man is also correct point. So I feel there is nothing.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Prabhuji, may I add something?
Yes, Vidya Mataji, please.
So I won't question that.
Please.
No, Prabhu, let me complete my thought.
Okay. Vidya Mataji, just couple of minutes more. Yes.
Yeah. So that is also first I want to tell where I agree. So that then the point that all of us embodied people, creatures or humans or whoever it is, we are all only the creator's creation. So ultimately, he is the only Purusha. So all of us, all the Prakriti energy based only, we are material energy based. Thing only we are embodied. That's all. So we only have that Paramatma thing in us, which helps us. If we promote it, we can get connected. That's all. Okay. So that way, all of us fall into the same category, whether embodied in a male body or embodied into a female body. That is also, I feel, I mean, I also believe that is true. But there's one thing on which I have a question, Prabhu. In this, the question is about when exactly the time frame, the times at which Vyasa Muni was having this type of a thought process about how to take care of the less intelligent women and Shudras and like the three categories. What was the time frame? Because when it comes to Vedic age, women were scholarly. I have read in many places at various references that women were very scholarly, not just because now they are going to engineering college, even those times, even as much as that lately, like even Adi Shankara was only 2000, 3000 years back, right? I think 2000 above, right? So even during that time, he was challenged by a female scholar person on how, what is that he could not prove, and he had to take into the body of you know that story, right? So so that way the women were even scholarly also. So I don't know when, at what period and what time frame Vyasa had this, and why this is being
so
told
it is being mentioned mainly for the people of Kali Yuga, and that is the time frame we discussed earlier in the class also, that it was at the Sandhya, Yuga Sandhya. Yuga Sandhya means when the Dwapar Yuga was about to end and Kali Yuga was about to begin.
Okay.
when Dwapar Yuga was about to end and Kali Yuga was about to begin. And the second point about you're talking about very scholarly women in the Vedic age, etc., etc. See, the point here is we are talking here in general. In general, when we say, I used to give this example often, that when we say America is a rich country, so it does not mean that America there are no beggars. Relatively speaking, in general, America is a rich country, but there might be some beggars here and there also. So similarly, in general, this is the inclination of the Jivatmas who are actually in the women body. And because they are endowed with this quality of emotionality, so the emotionality is their strength in one situation, but the same emotionality is a kind of a weakness in another situation. So it is like that. So because if they identify their emotional nature and try to fulfill their emotional needs, emotional aspect by becoming mothers, by giving themselves selflessly to their children, they actually do justice to their material nature, which is being given by the Creator to them. They feel more satisfied. When they feel more satisfied in this way, they can actually advance more towards spiritual subject matter in a much more nicer way. Because if at the bodily level only the living entity is not feeling satisfied, then difficult to satisfy at the level of soul. So that is the point we need to understand. Like we say Varnashram Dharma, we need to identify our natures. When we identify our natures and engage in our activities according to our natures, we feel satisfied. We are satisfied, and with that satisfied inclination of mind, when we do pursuits which are of spiritual nature, we actually move faster closer to the God. That is the understanding. So that is the point mainly here. Okay. Now I will take Vidya Mataji's.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare
Yes.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes. Vidyaji, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hari.
The English language can be very tricky also. The word used, less intelligent, can be an offensive word. However, the creation, the way women are created, that is the innate nature in women to be emotional and motherly affection.
Correct.
So in today's world, we may be physicians, we may be CEOs. The employer is not going to be kind to us. We have to perform to topmost level.
Correct.
The same way, when we come home, our job is not finished. Our job of being a mother and caring will always remain.
Yeah.
So my point is that women are doing perhaps I'm saying double duty, and have to be perfect in both those double duties.
Yeah, so this is a little more opens up for some more topics for discussion, where we are talking about role of women as I would say a professional, where she goes out and does professional work and earns money, and a role of a woman which is restricted more towards the household, where she is more in a motherly hat, wearing a motherly hat and a hat of a caregiver to the family. So see, the point is, the Vedic perspective encourages women to more explore their motherly nature, rather than, see, the role in a varnashram has been divided between the genders. The men, because they are more rational, more robust in terms of their bodily composition, physique, etc., they have been assigned a role that they will go out, deal with the outside world, and the women has been a little bit more emotionally surcharged, emotionally more rich, more care provider, more softer in nature, has been given this role of caring and building up a household. That is a traditional Vedic role, and this is actually not unscientific. This is mainly a very scientific way, identifying their bodily nature, psychophysical nature, and assigning those roles. That is the idea. When we bring, now we may bring this concept, okay, now in the today's world, what happens where the women actually perform double duty? So from the Vedic perspective, the second duty is not advisable. But when it comes to bhakti, when it comes to performing devotional service of the Lord, the idea is that we are not talking about you should leave this or you should accept this, you should make changes, big changes in your style of life. The idea is mainly that you come closer to God by actually learning more about Him. And then slowly and gradually the Lord will inspire you from within what is best for you. That is the Vedic perspective, or the position that we generally take for people in general, or specifically for the ladies in general in today's world. So that is I'm sharing with you the Vedic perspective as well as the perspective which we need to adopt in the today's world, keeping the situation that we are in right now. We are not going to change the situation in the society overnight. The women will be at home, the women will also go out to work. We are not going to change this situation because of what is written in Bhagavatam or because of what the Vedic perspective is encouraging. But we need to understand that whatever where we are, whichever situation, position we are, we need to turn towards God by doing some bhakti for the Lord, by chanting His names, by eating Krishna Prasad, by doing all that necessary which takes us close to the Lord. That is the main message. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji.
Prabhu, in line with what Mataji just mentioned, I feel that this type of categorization of these three is not relevant in this part of Kali Yuga. Already the Kali Yuga has started and going, right? So I feel there are only two categories. One is the devotee who has got faith in Bhagavan, and the non-devotee.
Otherwise, Kalo Shudra Sambhava. Kalo Shudra Sambhava means
yes,
generally everyone in Kali Yuga is a Shudra.
Yeah.
Generally, people in Kali Yuga are not inclined towards spiritual pursuits. So they are in general in the mode of passion or in mode of tamoguna.
Correct. So there can be only two categories when you are mentioning.
Yeah. But in order to explain that verse, which can create all kind of
that verse is now outdated, I feel, because
fanciful ideas among people, and subsequently losing faith in scripture like Bhagavatam. That description and understanding is important for us to know. Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So I think we have done good discussion. I need to also entertain the living entities in the male body. So any questions from them? Kindly advise.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes.
I have a small query.
Yes.
The difference between female and males and all that has been written. Perhaps is, as Mataji said, doesn't seem to be very relevant today.
In one sense, yes.
There are other categories of people. Suppose being a male or a female, if you try to be celibate or don't get married, don't have children, what about those? What is their level? Will they be still different?
So for women,
homosexuals.
Yeah. For women, it is advisable. For women, it is advisable to get married and become mothers to fully satisfy their psychophysical nature. That is the Vedic perspective. Now, women don't do it in this age and time. As I said, we need not debate a lot upon what is right and what is wrong from Vedic perspective. The point is, wherever we are, in whatever position we are, we now first of all come to this reality that we are expected to develop our loving relationship with the Supreme Lord. And in whatever position we are, whether it is conforming to the Vedic standards or not, we take to and start to doing bhakti, because bhakti is above any varnashram. You just now discussed in the previous chapters, we discussed elaborately that the goal of varnashram is bhakti. It is not that by doing bhakti we are performing varnashram duties, but ultimately we need to identify what is our nature, how best we can serve the Lord and come closer to the Lord and finish our job from here and go back to the spiritual world. That is the main purpose. That is the main message. Rather than too much getting into the details of there's an unmarried lady or there's an unmarried man or there's a women who are also going to some business or some job, etc., etc. All that is fine.
In that case, probably let's simplify our studies. Why go for all these things if they are not to be taken seriously?
Because we are studying these verses of Bhagavatam.
I am interested since beginning that if there is some riffraff, why can't we remove it and move on in the clearest possible range, which is really helping.
That is not my job, and
No,
I don't think.
You are an intelligent teacher. You need not repeat what others have been repeating. I think I, for one, would stand for you that here is a teacher who is rational, here is a teacher who is to the point, and here is a teacher who is making definite difference to my thinking. I take it that way.
Okay, maybe we will discuss this point little later.
Right, sir.
For the time being, I think for the time being we have enough for our thoughts, right? Okay.
Right. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. Okay, ji. Thank you for staying a little late, and Hare Krishna. We will continue our discussion next Sunday. I won't be able to have class. Yeah, I would also like to invite devotees for the Vyas Puja ceremony of my Srila Gurudev on Friday, the 19th of May in Vrindavan. It would be great if you can join that ceremony. It's a very nice ceremony. But if not, maybe I will share with you the YouTube link. You can join remotely also. So that is the message. So both the Wednesday class and the Friday class won't be possible this week. Wednesday I have to travel, and 19th Sunday I will be back. So that is the message. I will also post it on the WhatsApp group. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.